For this video, I'll be showing you folks three tools, all sandwiched in one area. That'll be the blur tool, the Sharpen tool, and a smudge tool. Let's start off with the blur tool. Okay, and we have a picture of President Taft from the Photoshop files, class files. I'm going to zoom in by holding down Command, Control if you're on a Windows computer, and hitting plus to zoom in. Looks like I maybe once or twice. 2 times should be good here. Okay, so with the blur tool, and remember folks, all three tools are technically brushes. So just like the paint brush and the eraser brush, you folks can control the size of your brush number of ways. If you click here, you have a slider for the brush as well as the hardness, just like the paint and eraser brushes or tools. You also can use your bracket key. Left bracket key makes the brush smaller, and the right bracket key makes your brush bigger, and you can go fairly big. And keeping in it with its name, the brush tool or the blur tool basically blurs everything that you paint over with it. So I have it active right now, right here, blur tool, and I'm just going to hold down the left mouse button and just wipe over or go back and forth over his left eye here, and as you can see, the more I keep painting over his left eye, it becomes really blurry. Let's do the right eye now. I'm right over his right eye, start painting, and it becomes fairly blurry. So it's a very simple tool. The only other control you have to, I guess, or you want to mess with as far as the blur tool is concerned, is the strength of the blur. I think the default is at 50%, but let me back out to the original. If you set it to 100, it's really going to become blurry really fast. Okay? So much so that you almost sort of can erase it out or distort the picture real significantly. By the way, I forgot to show you folks, but when any of the brush tools are active, whether it be the paintbrush, the eraser, or any of these other brushes that I'm showing you, if you use the right mouse, if you right click, you get pretty much the same menu as clicking up here. So you can really change your brush settings on the fly instead of having to come all the way up here, just right click and change your brush size and hardness and go right back to painting or editing really quick. You don't have to keep coming up to the brush tool options bar up here. And once again, that works for any of the brush tools, whether it's the paintbrush. See, so here I am, I got the brush tool going, and right click, you can set the size and the hardness and continue on. Okay, so that's one thing that I forgot to show you in previous videos. So we just covered the blur tool right here. I'm going to skip over the, well actually, yeah, I'll go ahead and use the blur tool really quickly. And let me do that again and reset the strength to 50%. And I'm gonna blur out his left eye again, and his eyebrow, left eyebrow. Yeah, that should be enough. Now I'm gonna go over the Sharpen tool, which I'm sure you folks already can tell that it does the exact opposite of blurring, which is to sharpen an area. So using my right open bracket key to make the brush larger, let me make that a little bit larger. If you start painting over a certain area, you'll make it sharp once more. Now you have to be careful, because you can over sharpen an area, and let me demonstrate that with his right eye here. So instead of blurring it out, I'm just going to sharpen it up again. You see how doing that gives that effect? Now he looks like a lizard man or something, which is what some people say. But in any case, this tool here, use it sparingly. Unlike the other tools like the blur and the smudge, which I'm about to share with you folks, use the Sharpen tool sparingly, because it really can get out of hand fast. Like right now, I'm sharpening or brushing over his mustache, and if I keep going, it can get really out of hand really quickly. Okay, so the Sharpen tool should be used sparingly. Now, if you do have a very blurry picture, more likely than not, it won't make it that sharp. For a number of reasons that's kind of hard to grasp as a concept right now for you folks. But it's just that with old blurry pictures, to get it to this clarity or sharpness is very difficult, because the amount of pixels that you're working with is small to begin with, the number of pixels. So using the Sharpen tool isn't going to make it that much better. It might help, but if you start off with a blurry picture, you won't be able to improve it that much. So just a word of warning if you folks end up using a Sharpen tool. Now, there is actual filter that you guys can use, which I will do another video on for just filters, and that is the Sharpen filter, which is located up here under the filter and Sharpen. But what that does is it sharpens the entire picture. Now, if that's your goal, to sharpen the entire picture, then you might want to go with the filter. The brush is for, I guess, pinpointing areas that you want to sharpen and fine-tune certain areas. So that's the difference between using the Sharpen filter and the Sharpen tool or brush. Next, let's go to the Smudge tool. And the Smudge tool is pretty much straightforward. I'm going to make my brush here smaller by hitting the left bracket key. And the Smudge tool is basically just pulling pixels to one side. So I'll demonstrate probably with his eye here, the corner of his left eye. So that's what the Smudge tool does. It smudges and whatever is within the circle here. So you folks may be wondering, when would this be a good tool to use? And if you ever seen pictures of or advertisements of people running, and you want to give or imply speed, this is a good tool to use. Save the image was a picture of the Flash, the DC character, the Flash running. Then you could get a picture of Flash in a running pose, and you could use this to give the blur that you see on him in his cartoon pictures. So the blur tool, or I'm sorry, the smudge tool, can be useful in certain situations. The strength of the smudge is regulated up here in the tool options bar under strength. You can lower the strength, and the lower the strength, the less you pull. If you want to achieve the same look as, say, something like this, but your strength is all the way down to, say, 16%, you still can get a same result as this, but you would have to keep going over the same area multiple times to really pull those pixels all the way out. Okay, so the lower the strength, the more you have to work to pull pixels or smudge out pixels, but you have better control. With a higher strength, you'll just smear the picture really quickly. Let's see how it would look if I brought in something with color. Let me zoom in the girl on the rock here. You can end up with mixed colors if you're not careful with the smudge tool. I'm just going to duplicate the layer here first. See, so I could pull her, the highlighted portion of her skin on the left side of her head. I can smudge it by, let me turn up the strength to, I believe the default is 30%. Oh, 30%. There you go. And you can really pull the pixels out, but I could also pull the pixels of the blue sky into her skin by doing it this way. And you can really mess up the picture really quick, as you can see here. And if I go around in a circle, you see the effect. And I'm just holding down my left mouse button and moving my mouse in a circular pattern here. So you see the effect that the smudge has with mixing up colors here. And that's only at 30%. So if you really crank this up, then you can get a real swirl, almost like a cappuccino swirl effect there. So the smudge tool is very powerful, and depending on what you folks want to do, you folks can really either mess up your picture badly or get a real nice effect. Okay, so keep that in mind. Out of all of these three tools here, this is in my opinion, the most powerful and the most useful. It's the tool I use the most out of this set of three tools. I never use the Sharpen tool. Most of the time I just use the Sharpen filter, which I just showed you folks earlier. And the blur tool can come in handy as well. But for the most part, I'm guessing most of the time you folks would probably use the smudge tool. So that's it for these for this video, these sets of brushes or tools.